My name is Jayashree and I am the author community lead at Editage. I am also the co-chair of Peer Review Week 2022. Recently, I had the opportunity to attend the 9th International Congress on Peer Review and Scientific Publication in Chicago. This event, also known as the Peer Review Congress, takes place once every 4 years and it invites original research on the journal publishing system and peer review in particular. At this event, I was able to interact with and interview several industry experts to hear their views on the role peer review plays in scientific publication and how each of us can maintain research integrity. We have curated some of these video snippets and we'd like to share these with you in the hope that this will help you broaden your perspective about what authors, reviewers, journal editors, publishers, and institutions can do to foster and maintain research integrity.
Hi, Leslie. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I just wanted to speak to you about something very interesting. As you know, it's Peer Review Week is around the corner, and this year we are speaking about research integrity. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about research integrity in general, and what kind of role do you think peer review plays here?
Well, peer review plays a very integral role in research integrity. It's through peer review that the data is looked at to see if it's presented in a fair, balanced, and transparent way. And the peer reviewers often have questions regarding how the study was conducted and how the study results are reported. And it helps in the process. It's a critical link to making sure that we can trust the results that we read as far as possible.
And what do you think are some of the threats to research integrity, and how can peer review help us deal with those threats?
Well, some of the threats to research integrity goes beyond peer review and what peer review can do, obviously. But what peer review allows journal editors to perform is a good look at what is submitted and to see if it's up to the standards of the journal and of research in general. So it's an important, for example, it's important screening to make sure that things are on the up and up. Of course, nothing is going to combat out-and-out fraud, of course, but the peer review process also helps the quality of what is being reported. So very often peer reviewers have very good ideas on how to better present the research. So as an author, I'm very grateful to the peer reviewers for the advice that they have provided, and I view it as a positive experience, not a negative one. And sometimes people who are submitting their work for the very first time get a recommendation of major revision, and they feel very bad about it. Major revision sounds like a failure. Actually, that's great success. It means the journal is very interested in the paper and would like some revisions to be made. And these major revisions will only help the paper and ultimately will get accepted.
First, with the sort of roles of reviewers and journals when we address research integrity. First, personally, I think that the research integrity issues are not the main domain of journals or reviewers. I think that trust has to come before, and it is the duty of the IRB or the Ethics Approval Committee, whatever you call them, to give that seal of approval. And that from the institutions that give us our affiliation, it is those that need to guarantee the integrity of the work of their researchers. The problem here is that because of academic freedom, universities never really check the completed work of researchers and what is the version of that work when it is being submitted to a journal. And this is what I think hopefully will change future in the culture. If you were working, as many do, maybe in pharmaceutical companies or elsewhere, you have much more internal checks for the documents before they are submitted. This doesn't happen in academia. You as an author in academia submit your things to a journal without your university even knowing about that. And this is where things can get tricky. Now, as an editor, we often think that we hope, and especially if you implement ORCID ID, that is a guarantee that you are, as a person, actually exist and that someone is not manipulating, whatever that is. But you can never know unless we ask for data. But even if we do ask for data, has the data been manipulated before it was sent in the version that was sent for us? So there's always a big layer of trust that we sort of presume. Practically, as an editor, the most common issues that we address is the authorship issues. So, for example, if someone submits a paper to my journal and there was a preprint or there was a protocol, and there's a different order of authors, or someone is not there, we always check that and we ask them, could you elaborate why this happened? I cannot force the authors. The authorship question is, really up to the authors themselves to see who do they think that deserves authorship and things like that. But it is our duty to sort of remind them what happened. That's why I'll go back to what I started with. This should be the institution's thing. If I would get with your submission a little letter or a seal of approval or a badge like we're doing for Open Science that says the university has approved this submitted to a journal, they don't have to specify which journal, but that they know that this is done, that they guarantee they do it. Because we have seen, especially retraction watches here, when you look at them, steps are contact the authors and contact their institutions. If we cannot get that contact of institution, how do we find that? And I think what would be great for the culture to change is whenever authors submit a paper, that there is a contact from an institution, which is their research integrity office or even their dean of research, whoever is in charge of research, that you get their contact, even if they're not the author.
Sure.
If there are any concerns, that you can contact them. And this is what I would like to see change, because I think it is really the primary institution who needs to give us that seal.
Regarding research integrity, I think one thing it is paramount for any research, because as we all know that integrity is something which doing the right thing even if somebody is seeing or not. So that's very important. And in research, integrity is we trust research basically because it can influence practice, it can influence our decision making, diagnostic, prognostics, everything. And this has a very high potential of damaging lives, because in healthcare this can just be catastrophic if we are going by evidence which is not really real. So in that case, integrity becomes even more important. Having said that, when it comes to peer review and the connect of peer review with research integrity, I feel there are 2 or 3 aspects of the same. Let me put it up in this way that, see, peer reviewers have a very, very important role to play in any kind of research and more so in life sciences and health sciences research. What happens is peer reviewers usually, of course, peer reviewers now are people from various backgrounds and different range of experiences. But as they progress, the experience helps them. And the other thing is, when there is a paper which goes to a reviewer, he or she can actually enrich that paper. They can also look at the veracity of the claim or a new hypothesis. They can suggest a few things which can improve, or maybe they can you can say that they can probably change the course of future research in that area and make things better. So all those things are there, and that way they can actually contribute and enrich the science. However, it's also important that peer reviewers have integrity themselves. As an editor, I've seen, I think sometimes what happens is, because of all these things coming up that publish or perish, or sometimes the culture that some of these mandated regulations by regulatory authorities, people are doing me too kind of research. And many a times this is something, again, this doesn't really help. Of course, if you want to substantiate, add to evidence, fine. But if I don't want to do that and I'm just doing it because sake of numbers, I think overall, coming to the subject that integrity and peer review, both are very much interconnected. And integrity is something which cannot be really, like, it can be taught, yes, role modeling, but it has to come from here. And this starts long ahead of when people become researchers. So I think we have a role to play right from grooming young people and seeing to it that they do things in the right way, and we lead them by our conduct.
And as far as the peer review goes, that's why we have multiple editors, and we try to have multiple reviewers. It is a flawed system because the people who do peer review are supposed to be experts in the area. They don't understand everything, but that's why we have multiple peer reviewers. So we try to have 2 or 3 peer reviewers for everything.
You also said you were very passionate about ethics.
Yes.
What got you interested in ethics?
I think probably a few major ethics problems that came up, that we had to deal with. occasionally we've had something, where someone has written to us and let us know that, some work was duplicated from something else, or some similar thing has taken place. And then when we've investigated it, we've often found really interesting, interesting factoids about human nature, that would cause people to actually copy other people's work, or to misrepresent the work in some way, or sometimes to fabricate work. And so that all has to be taken into account when you're looking at research, but there are people involved in research that maybe because of just inadequacies, or because they're trying to show, trying to prove themselves, or trying to make a place in the research world, that they will fabricate figures and this sort of thing.
If you had one piece of advice for authors, reviewers, and editors, what would you say to each of them?
To each of them. To authors, I would say, do your best work. Seek lots of help from your mentors. Mentors, don't be sloppy. Help the people who are in your laboratories get the best results. And try to make sure that your research is complete, that you followed all the guidelines, that you sought the help of your mentors, and that you start out with, and of course being ethical in all your work. And there'll be some people maybe who maybe aren't educated enough to see what they should be doing, and then their mentors need to come in and teach them to follow ethical principles and to do the best work they can. Make the studies as high-powered as you can, and make them strong. For reviewers, I would say, it's your responsibility. You're part of that. You're advising the editor, so you're part of that responsibility as the last gateway to really check the work, to be thorough, to be to question, to look at things like statistics and guidelines, and make sure all those sort of things are followed, and make sure the work looks like it really stands up as it would in your own lab. Would this be something you'd be proud of sending to a journal? Is it sound research, and is it good research, and is it novel, and does it make a difference in what may be published in a journal? And you have to understand what the journal's objectives are as far as the types of papers and the quality of papers they want. For editors, I think editors, they are taking that. They are there. That's where the buck stops, at editors. So they have to be especially careful. I think anytime there is an ethical problem that arises, they have to make sure that they look into it, make sure that there's, ensure that there is no ethical problem before they proceed with anything. And they need to listen to the peer reviewers and take their advice, but they can't blindly rely on them if they have their own sense that something maybe need to be done to make a paper stronger, or that something may be wrong, basically, with the paper, especially anything ethical. And that when there is a problem, that is really their responsibility to take care of that literature record and come in and investigate situations, and if there is a necessity for a retraction or a correction or this sort of thing, it should be done in the right ways. And so they have a lot. I think the editor has a lot of responsibility to be able to make those final decisions, and then to follow up and make sure the literature is corrected as needed.
I hope you find these useful. Happy Peer Review Week.